Welcome back to the Capes and Tights podcast right here on capesandtights.com. I'm your host, Justin Soderberg. Once again, this episode is brought to you by our friends over at Galactic Comics and Collectibles at galacticcomicsandcollectibles.com. But this episode, we welcome Aaron B. Koontz to the program, who is a filmmaker and the CEO of a company called Paper Street Pictures. He is a producer, writer, director of movies like The Pale Door, the Scare Package franchise, Camera Obscura. He's also the producer of movies like Old Man, The Artifice Girl, Shelby Oaks. And he, along with his buddy Luke Boyce, created Revival, the TV series for SyFy, which is based on the comic book series by Tim Seeley and Mike Norton over at Image Comics. So we discussed the Revival series, a little bit about Aaron's background in film and video games. In this episode, we talk about Revival, though. So check out this episode. But before you do, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, all those places. You can rate, review, subscribe to the podcast over on Spotify or Apple or wherever you find your podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube. And as always, you can visit capesandtights.com for so much more. But this is Aaron B. Koontz, filmmaker, showrunner of TV series Revival on SyFy. Enjoy, everyone. Welcome to the podcast, Aaron. How are you today?
Hey, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you here on the podcast. Big fan of the show, but also a big fan of the comic book Revival. So it's a big thing. When I heard the SyFy news about it being made into a show or actually getting picked up, I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot wait. But yeah, so we're going to chat about that too, Revival and stuff like that. But you went to film school. You worked in the video game industry for a little while, and now you're in films again. What made you just touch on what made you want to make films for a living or things on screen for a living? What struck a chord? What made this happen?
Yeah, Jaws, honestly. I mean, like it's pretty, I have like a Jaws tattoo, I can
Yeah.
really see. I mean, it's my mom had a book, or my aunt had a book, and that was like, behind the scenes stuff on Jaws
Mm.
and with all these photos and stuff. And I remember understanding that, okay, this was like in the water, but I was like, I couldn't understand how, like, was there a camera in the water? Like I knew there was a camera and I knew that they weren't real, but there was like some level of disconnect. And then I saw this picture of this guy posing with like the shark jaws and then, with a megaphone and all this. And I'm like, who is that? And like, well, that's who makes the movie.
Mhm.
That's the person who's like, wrote and directed all this. And I was like, oh wow. So there's like a person behind this. There's a vision behind this. And I wanted to be them. So immediately it was Spielberg and those types of like, splendor and big, Amblin properties were what really got me so excited, or I guess became Amblin later. But like it was there was just and I always was a little bit of a storyteller. I mean, I
Mhm.
remember getting coloring books and they would tell you how to color, and then I would get in trouble because, when this is like grade school stuff,
Mhm.
and like I would color them different or like put them like in a graveyard and put like weird spooky things or put it in like a fantasy world. I was obsessed with Lord of the Rings and, all that stuff growing up too. Lion Witch of the Wardrobe and so the C.S. Lewis stuff, like all those books and everything just really, and the animated Hobbit movie
Mhm.
were just like all big influences on me. And I just love being transported into like a different world. So, and wrote short stories, a little poetry and stuff as a kid. So it was always kind of a little bit in my DNA. And but I still never really believed that I could be a filmmaker for the
Mhm.
longest time. And, went to school for totally different stuff initially. And then, I just was not happy and unfulfilled. And I was like, okay, there's this chance. There's a film school that was local, and I was like, let's just give it a shot. And I had a couple of friends who were pushing me along as well, and we decided to go at it, and we went to Full Sail. And it was the first time I was like really on a set and like
Mhm.
understood set protocol, and I just couldn't. It was like a drug. Like I
Mhm.
just couldn't get enough of it. And to the point where I would volunteer on all the student films so I could be on everybody else's set.
Yeah.
And I would paint the walls, I would do anything, I would whatever they wanted just so I could be on their sets as well. So it just was something that kind of scratched an itch that I never really knew I had to that level. And yeah, the video game industry, whole other thing. The film industry in Florida at the time was really tough. And
Yeah.
took a temp job in the game industry, and then that became a career, and I was editing commercials for them at one point, so it was kind of adjacent, and then I
Mhm.
went into like the quality assurance and customer service role and did that. And yeah, I worked for THQ, Volition, we did like Saints Row, Red Faction, worked at EA
Yeah.
for a number of years, and had a lot of fun and enjoyed doing that. But it wasn't movies, it
Mhm.
wasn't film, wasn't TV. So was always kind of like itching to get back into it somehow.
When I read online that you went to Full Sail, it brought me back in '04. I graduated high school in 2004, and in 2002, 2003, 2004, that time, I so badly wanted to go to Full Sail. It was like the dream because I took film classes in school, but like the ones that were just like in high school. Luckily enough, my film class teacher in high school was Carleen Hirsch, who was
Mm,
the screens director on Pet Cemetery. And so I
mm.
live in Maine, and so obviously I live actually in Bangor, Maine, which is where Stephen King
Yeah,
is
yeah,
from. So like all of that connection, I was like, oh my gosh, I want to do this. Never ended up doing it. So I was like, oh,
yeah.
I'm so happy to talk to someone who was like, oh yeah, they actually did what they wanted to do and go to Full Sail
And
and
that's
things
when
like
I
that.
went.
Yes.
That's the time period that I went too. Yeah, yeah.
But it
That's
was
so crazy.
it's pretty crazy. I was like, oh, that's amazing. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's a talking to people who make the make things. So you have movies or comics or books or whatever it may be, the passion behind it. And it's funny how you had that little bit of a detour again, adjacent at moments, doing video game stuff. But if you look back and you think, if I tell my son who's 4 what you do, he'd probably be like, that is amazing, whether it be video games or filmmaking or anything like that. So like you
Yeah.
are living a lot of people's dreams. You mentioned you've been busy recently and stuff like that. Obviously, your show Revival is on TV right now. So it's a busy thing. It's a lot of work. But you must be, it's one of those things that you ever like sit back and just like kind of pinch me moments where you're like, I'm doing what I really want to do.
No, absolutely. And to be clear, this is my dream. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? 100%. And I think about that. I think about 4-year-old me, and I've recently had some loss in my family, and it allows you to reflect on the journey,
Mhm.
and who you know, and the loves in your life and the people that you care about, and what's important. And I'm so lucky to get to do the thing that I don't believe in fate and stuff
Yeah.
like that
Yeah.
or whatever and all that, but I know this is the thing I was kind of meant to do,
Hmm.
if that makes sense. Like it
Hmm.
just feels so right. I've never, I worked in the corporate world for so long, and I like my time at the game industry, don't get me wrong. It was still creative, and there's amazing, amazing creatives in the game industry, but it wasn't exactly my dream. It
Hmm.
was still, like you said, adjacent. And then the tech industry was just soul sucking and
Yes.
awful, and like I didn't care how much money they were trying to offer me or whatever. Like none of that was going to
Hmm.
matter. Um, but yeah, there is something about, I've now made 25 or so features. I've directed for my own. I've got my own TV series, alongside my creative partner, Luke Boyce there.
Yeah.
And like, it's just, I'm really lucky. I'm really, really lucky. But within that, I know I've also, every day I wake up like thinking, how can I move something
Hmm.
forward today? And I've done this like outside of the system. I don't have, I didn't have a rich family that was helping me. There's no Nepo baby stuff going
Yes.
on here, even though Koontz, I wish my dad was Dean Koontz. Like, dear God, that would be so much cooler. But none of that stuff happened. And you didn't have an agent, manager, any of that stuff. It was just me figuring out a way to get stuff made at a time where nobody says they can get
Mhm.
anything made, and take a lot of pride in like what we've created and what we've done. But it's been hard, and it
Mhm.
continues to be hard, but it is still, when you make something and you see it resonating with people, like you have this like weird idea, at some random place, and I'm writing down some, like, okay, I don't know if this is funny. I don't know if this is going to work. And then years later, someone you don't know, never met, is crying or laughing or reacting. There's something so fulfilling about that. And
Mhm.
remembering the tough times when I was a kid, when my escape was to watch the show, the movie, the thing, and now maybe I'm giving that to some others I mean, come on. There's
Mhm.
nothing cooler.
I,
And so yeah, I try to take the time to smell the roses, if you will, because it's good and they smell damn good.
Yes, they do. And I mean, so revival is like the main reason we're here to talk to you. I just like the idea of talking a little bit about how you got where you are. I mean, did you read Revival as a comic prior? I know you were a producer on Revealer with Tim Seeley and obviously Morrissey, who wrote on Revival the TV show as well. Also writes comic books and things like that. And
Hmm.
obviously your creative partner there, Luke, worked on that book too. But did you know Tim before? Did you read the comics? Like, how did you, Aaron, come on to work on
Yeah.
Revival, the TV show?
Yeah, I mean, well, it was really through that movie Revealer, you know.
Okay.
So I knew who Tim Seeley was. I was very familiar with Hack Slash, so I loved
Mhm.
Hack Slash. Definitely knew that. And horror comics, I mean, just horror in general. I'm just a
Yeah.
horror aficionado. Like it's my thing. I'm an advocate for horror. I get really upset when people call things like, elevated horror. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's like bullshit. There's no elevated drama or elevated
No.
comedy, right? Like why does it need to be elevated? It's already
Yes,
there. Like
exactly.
it's just
Yes.
bullshit. Anyway, sorry, ran over. But I just love horror, and so I helped out on Revealer as a producer. This was like early in 2020 when the pandemic was like at its peak. It was
Yep.
actually one of the first movies that was made during the pandemic, and I wasn't on set with Luke, or I didn't get to meet Tim. I just was someone that the other producers were like, "Hey, we want some help getting this going, and we want another producer
Yep.
with experience to help this and sell the film and stuff like that and get involved." And I did. And then in post production of that, now this gets to Revival, I promise. In post production of that, I was giving notes to Luke Boyce, who's the director, and again, we had not met in person, and I was
Okay.
really worried about, oh my God, this guy's gonna hate me. Like I'm just coming in like some quote unquote producer
Yeah.
dude, telling him all the shit that I want him to change, and he just was so willing and understanding and patient, and we were able to talk through everything, and we just kind of hit it off. There
Hmm.
was a kinship, like we spoke the same cinematic language, all the same references I had, and then the more we dove into this, the more we realized like how similar our paths are and our backgrounds and everything, and just really became good pals. And through that process, and I knew Tim wrote on it, right, and had
Hmm.
met with Tim, but not we hadn't talked, about other properties or anything. I'm just off making movies. That's really what I'm
Yeah.
what I'm there doing. Luke and Tim they had partnered to try to make Revival as a movie, and they were just getting it out everywhere. In fact, there even was an announcement of a movie like 5, 6 years ago, if people really recall. And that was through Luke and Tim and what they were doing. And he's like, "Look, man, I'm stuck. You get all these movies made." And then Tim was so elated because not only did we get Revealer made, but then I sold it to Shudder and it got out there, and all this stuff. And he's like, "Oh my God, I wrote a thing and someone
No,
actually
it's
did
yeah.
something with it. Like that never happens." It's a lot of promises that are broken, especially with a lot of comic creators. And so he's like, "Yeah, man, like if you want to take a swing at this, we would love for you to look at it." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, yeah, man, this is a cool." And I had heard of the comic, had not read it.
Mhm.
So Luke sent me the comics, and I was like, "Okay, let me." And I'm making like multiple movies at the same time and super busy. And I'm just like, I don't know, we'll see. But this would be cool. Like I really like these guys. And then I read that first issue and I was completely hooked. I was like, what the hell? I did not see the twist coming at all. And I'm like, and also, there's like aliens and stuff. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, I mean, this is like crazy shit, at least what I at the time
Yeah.
thought were aliens. And so it just immersed me. It was such an interesting world. This rural noir,
Mhm.
Zorse is dying. There's poetry, weird Fargo characters. I'm just like, man, this is cool. But it's also the scope is way beyond
Yeah.
TV, like a movie,
Movie. Yeah.
And so I was like, guys, like I think number one, I like it, love it. Number two, I absolutely want to make it, but I think this is the pilot of a TV show
Mhm.
and not a movie. And they had explored that a little bit in the past, but not like fully, gone all in. And they were all about it, love the idea, and then they're like, "So have you made TV before?" And I'm like, "Nope." I've done none of this. But I'm also the kind of person that is just exciting to me.
Yeah.
Like I'm again like no agent, no manager, not in Hollywood, no anyone. I'm like, all right, I'll figure it out. Like I've sold a lot of movies, and the people that buy some movies that I have, the department next to them or the
Yeah,
door
it's
next to
been
them, they sell. So maybe they
yeah.
can tell me someone or whatever. And so we just started. I was like, I'll start pitching and figuring it out. And then the big hook for me there as well, on top of that, was not only do I want to sell the show and help kind of create it and produce it, I want to be the co-creator. And I was like,
Mhm.
Luke, I want you and I to do this together. And Luke was always worried that he wasn't going to be able to be a showrunner and all this. And I was like, no, man, we're going to do this together. Like, I think we get along. I could work with you. I think this will work. Let's do it. You and I, showrunners, and he's like, well, they're not going to allow us to be showrunners. Like, no one. I was like, we'll see, and
Yeah,
I just held my ground when people said no. And I
yeah,
was like, well, we had multiple people who said, well, we're interested, but you need to bring in an experienced showrunner and all this stuff. And I was like, no, no, I'll meet with them, but this is going to be Luke and my show.
yeah.
That's what we're going to do. And thankfully, the relationships I had developed in the feature side and the people that I had known, and there's a whole other story related to that of actually who ended up buying it and why. But was really fun, and it actually was a pretty quick yes from the NBC folks. So, which was really exciting. HBO also was very interested, but they just had True Detective, Night Country,
Yeah.
which they thought was a little too similar. Mare of Easttown as well was a little similar, just not the supernatural twist. But yeah, but then and also AMC, we talked to a number of people, but SyFy and NBC knew the product, knew the comic. NBC actually owned the rights to Revival like 10 years ago. And then when some show like The Returned or whatever happened, they like you know
Shelved
canceled
it.
and
Yeah,
said
yeah,
no.
yeah,
And I'm like, well, we're nothing like that. Like, that's
yeah.
just like, who cares? Like, yes, there's zombies that are normal, but that's it. And like, there's Glitch and there's great shows that have done that, but it's no different. Like, it's so weird. People are like, oh, I've seen this before. I'm like, have you seen a zombie show before? Like there's a million zombie shows,
Yes. Yeah.
but no one's like, you watch 20 years later and you're like, well, I've seen Night of the Living Dead and
Yeah.
I've seen Walking Dead. And I'm like, no, they all exist in their own world. Anyway,
Yeah.
sorry, I digress.
No,
But,
it's true.
but
Yeah.
that's where it came from. Yeah.
It's true because I was trying to I try to explain it to people. We just read so I've read it many times, like three or four times.
Mm.
I own all the deluxe like
Oh, rad.
hardcover like books, and so I loved it for a long time. And so we read it for my book club at my local comic book shop last month, and
Mm.
mainly because the premiere was coming, and I was like, if you guys all read it in the first 2 weeks of the month, we don't meet till the last week of the month, but then you'll get 2 episodes you can watch of the TV show, and we can have a conversation about adaptations and all that stuff. And so a lot of
Mm.
people did, and so trying to explain it to them though, I was like trying to explain it to them like it's rural noir, but it's got zombies, but they're not really zombies. Well, they kind of are zombies, and I'm like, if you look up the definition of a zombie, it kind of, and so it's like this weird, but to me it was unique. And to me, hearing that SyFy was the network that it was going to be on also made it unique in that sense because I felt like I've always wanted to see it on something like I've wanted to see that. I've wanted to see Nailbiter, a couple other great comics I want to see on
Yeah.
TV, but I've always pictured them as like HBO or Netflix or these places where you can do whatever you want. Like you can go to the
Yeah.
extreme a little
Yeah.
bit further. But then I'm thinking to myself, the first number of seasons of Walking Dead were amazing, and it was on cable television. It was on AMC. It was
Yeah.
like it was so you
Yeah.
can do this without having to go to the extreme. And so I liked seeing it on NBC or SyFy as well. I also love the fact that it's week to week. That to me is great because I can have those conversations with people in between, like we used to be
Yeah.
able to do back in the day. We're like, what do you think's
Yeah.
gonna happen? What do you think's gonna? This is what's gonna, instead of being like, oh, I've seen the whole show, and then someone's like, well, I've only seen the first 2 episodes, or I've seen half of the episodes, or whatever. I've been able to see and have conversations with people who have, talked into watching the show. Say, hey, you should really see the show. And we've been like, oh, what's gonna happen? That's fun, and that's why I'm glad where it ended up is because it makes it different. It makes it more approachable for some people.
Oh, I love that. I love
Yeah,
that. Yeah. One of my favorite things used to be when I worked in tech, or I think it was at the game industry at the time, and Lost was on week
yeah,
to week, and me being wrong every week about everything that was happening in Lost. Like, I had so much fun thinking like, oh, I have it all figured out, and it's this, and I was wrong every time, like every single time. And that was fun, and we thought about that. Once we realized it was going to be week to week and
yeah,
ad breaks. It's a weird thing to
yes,
have ad breaks too. But I was like, oh, well, I can play with those. And look, there's pros and cons that come with SyFy. Like, I'm not
oh
gonna
yeah,
lie, right? Like,
yes,
don't get me wrong. Love you, SyFy, if you listen to this,
yeah,
but like, I probably would have preferred HBO to pick it up.
yeah,
It had a lot more
yes,
money, a lot more
yes,
time,
yes,
and what this is. But at the same time, those restrictions breed creativity. They kind of force you to have to think about the show a little bit differently and also like streamline the things. Like I actually think if it was just Netflix right off the bat or HBO or whatnot, I might have been given a little bit of too much rope to hang myself
Mhm.
with. I really start to think it because there were so many stories I wanted to tell, and I think this is already a very dense story, both within the comic and then what we've done, and because we've added storylines, but also removed storylines, but like the way we've kind of like tried to navigate this,
Mhm.
I think it could have been too much. I think it could have been too much. But these restrictions like forced us to be like, well, I gotta just focus on the sisters,
Mhm.
and like this is what it's got to be about. And I think and we knew that. We knew the story was still going to be central to that, wherever it ended up, but really had to streamline, in order to do this in 41 minutes, is
Yes.
what you have total, right? So with, you've got outbreaks and stuff, but like, I mean, that's it. And
You're not
and
like the Duffer
so
Brothers and getting 2.5 hours for an episode, like on the next
oh my
Stranger
God,
Things
in
season.
5 years and whatever. But that's, good for Ross and
Yeah.
Madeline, like,
No, no,
but
I'm just, it just, I saw
yeah.
the thing. I'm like, we got eight movies coming up here pretty soon.
Oh my God,
It's
yeah.
8 films. But yeah, I mean, it is to condense it into 41 minutes and have those commercial or the breaks, and they're not just breaks in the middle of things. And my wife said about that, about the Stranger Things thing, like, well, shouldn't they just take the hour and a half or 2 hour episode, make it 2 1 hour episodes? I'm like, but that's a writing process in there. That's a strategic process in that. Like maybe they didn't feel like it felt like it could break up at that point. Like there's no natural break, or so you have to kind of write those in
Yeah.
too, right? I mean, it's the same thing with like I feel like with writing a comic and having to have the surprise be on the next page,
Hmm.
because you can't have it in the middle of the page because your eyes immediately just go to that and go, oh, so and so dies. That's pretty cool. You have
Yeah.
to have
Yeah.
almost the
Yeah.
deaths or the surprises on the next page so that you
Yeah.
open up and has
Yeah.
that, or jump scares in horror comics or whatever it may be. So yeah, there is a science to a sci-fi show versus something that's on HBO where you're like, yeah, that episode could be an hour and 15 minutes if you want. It
Yeah.
doesn't really matter, or it can be 20. I've watched streaming shows where it's like one episode's 35 minutes and the next one's an hour and 15. And
Yeah.
so it does have that,
Yeah.
difference in making a TV show. But like I said, I felt like it was almost more OG, more like how I used to watch TV, like you mentioned with Lost and things like that. Like it had to, but also discussing it with having source material. And so like I could
Hmm.
even go in from episodes 1 to 2 or 2 to 3 and feel like I know what the hell's going on. But I credit you guys because I was just discussing with a buddy of mine about how I don't like word for word adaptations. Like if you watch Harry Potter and then read the book, the first 3 movies and the first 3 books are like there's like entire paragraphs that are read on screen,
Yeah.
and you know
Yeah.
what I mean. So like you're like it's almost like word for word at moments. Whereas I'd rather have you and Luke and all your adaptation of what you feel like should be on screen, what Tim, and Mike maybe missed, or you want to do it slightly different on screen because I want a new experience. I want the
Yeah.
core to be there, but I want to see how someone else's mind does that. And I'm guessing Tim is similar in that he wants the property on TV, but he also probably wanted your take on it, not just
Oh,
take my comic book and make it into
100%.
a TV show. So there's
Oh,
some work
no,
in it. I
100%.
appreciate that, but like I said, I could go week to week and be like, I know what the hell's going to happen. Then I'm like, actually, I don't. I know, I know
Yeah.
the thread, but I don't really know what's going to happen in the season finale,
Yeah.
for an example. And so I have that like cockiness going into talking to a friend and who hasn't read the comic, and they're like, "You're wrong." I'm like, "Ah, God damn it."
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Well, and that's, but I will say that was deliberate, And,
Yeah,
and look, and Tim has been involved. Tim and Mike, they both came to set. They
yeah,
joined our writer's
yeah.
room. Everything was even when we were really kind of, diverge. We would kind of talk with him and just say, hey, like we're thinking about going this direction. Like, how does this feel? And he's like, oh man, that's awesome. Like, I wish we could have done that, or I wish we did that, which was fun. And then on the flip side, there's also things that are in the comic, but like scope wise are just would blow the entire budget because they're just drawing a panel,
Yeah,
and I'm like, I can't have 100 trucks and
no,
flipped over and, all this stuff. So like it's you have to figure out those ways to kind of manage it. But look, I appreciate you saying that because it was important in that we love the material so much, but then at the same time also want to give you a new experience, exactly
mm,
what you were saying. Like we want someone to be able to like, oh, I think I know where it's going. And then we know what you expect it to be from the comic. So then we want to, there are many times where we will set something up where it's like, oh, this is this thing. And then you're talking to your partner, like, oh, I read the comic. They're going to do
yeah,
this thing. And then it starts to move that way. And then as soon as it gets there, then it zigs when you think we're
yeah.
going to zag. And it's like, wait, what? I thought, and like, well, that's not how I remember that or whatever, but hopefully in an enjoyable way. That keeps you like, oh, now I see how this comes together, or no, oh, now here's this storyline that I
Hmm.
didn't realize was that, and how we combine characters or change things. I mean, the biggest character we changed was Blaine,
Yep.
which was a lot of fun in the comic, but there's still a lot of Blaine from the comic in there.
Hmm.
I don't know if he listens to Limp Bizkit anymore, but I'll have to think about that. But I think it was once we got Stephen Ogg,
Yeah.
like it was kind of we wanted to kind of create this more of like a Nick Cave kind of
Yeah.
creature style thing, and not be quite as redneck,
Yeah.
in what's there. But but it was still it's fun to think about that. And it was nice because, Luke was so close to the comic. And then I came in, I had just read the comic. So and we're jumping in and we're adapting. So it
Yeah.
kind of allowed this nice like where I'm maybe pushing us more to go in a more unique direction. And Luke's like, oh, don't forget about this. And I'm like, oh shit, yeah, we gotta
Yes.
work.
Yeah.
That's a perfect thing to work in. And when we planned the season, and Luke and I did this for, years really. 2 years after I pitched it and NBC wanted it, but then the strikes happened and all these things
Yeah.
happened. So it was just so much. So Luke and I would just kind of like privately meet and talk out
Hmm.
ideas. But we took all these moments from the comic and kind of put them up on a board of like, well, we can't adapt this and not do this.
Hmm.
We can't adapt this and not do this. And these things. Other than the first issue, which is the first episode and first issue are very
Yeah.
close.
Yes.
Beyond, we knew we were going to end that on Don't Tell Dad,
Oh my God.
but beyond that,
Aaron,
had to.
it was one of the happiest moments I've had in a long time. Like you could see it coming from a mile away because you've read the comic book, but and then obviously the episode's called "Don't Tell Dad" too. So that so I was
Yeah.
trying to tell people who hadn't seen the show yet. I'm like, you need. It's amazing. I'm going to spoil this but the episode's called this, so I can't really spoil it. And I'm like, it's like when she says "Don't tell Dad," I literally audibly yelled in my house. My wife was like, "Are
Oh
you okay?"
man.
I'm like, it's that time when it's like, if they would have said revival, like, or like when they say something on this, and you say like, "Oh, they said the name of the book" or whatever. I was just
Yeah.
like, "Oh my God, they did it!" I'm so glad they adapted it perfectly in that sense. But yes, go ahead.
Well, that's credit. That's just credit to what Tim and Mike had created,
Yes,
right? I mean,
don't tell
like
Dad. I'm like, it's a way to end the episode so
perfect.
well.
It's perfect. And there was one, I remember like there was one draft when Luke and I were talking and it didn't end on those words. And I was like,
Yeah,
man, we're out on Don't Tell Dad. We're not going
gotta
anywhere
do it.
else. That is the moment. Get out. Big needle drop swell.
Yes.
We got that Moth
Oh,
in the Flame song, which is a song I love. And like just have something that you're like, wait, what? And then that set up really. Don't Tell Dad set up for us a structure
mm,
where I was like, well, if this is gonna work, like I want Don't Tell Dad at the end of every episode.
yeah.
Like that was kind of like a goal.
Mm,
And not to just be like, oh, a twist,
yeah.
but and pull the rug, but more so just to set up a bit of a cliffhanger, knowing that it's week to week,
Mm,
so that hopefully the goal is like, oh, I wish I could just binge this right now, and to feel that. And so I mean, look, Luke and I both are OCD, and so I mean, I have no qualms with admitting this. Like I went through and watched every pilot and of like every show and just wrote down like when things happened, how I felt. And then other similar shows with like, Fargo, Stranger
yeah.
Things, Mayor of Easttown, Sharp Objects, just like a million things. And I would go through, watch these episodes, and say, okay, here's how I'm feeling, and here's what they're doing at the end. Here's who I think the killer is. Here's what I think about this, and how they beat up their characters and just learn from the greats, the people who are
Mm,
really great at this. And I started to find like a formula that I really thought, I'm like, I think there's a way to do this without it feeling paint by numbers and feeling like I've
mm,
just seen this before. And then once you know the formula, then you're able to say, okay, now here's what people are going to feel. They're going to be
mm,
expecting, and then here's how I can pull. Then I can really pull the rug. And that was a lot of fun and very specifically constructed. With a real purpose in mind. Like I
mm,
referenced Lost, and I know what people get frustrated about Lost was some meandering and things that had happened, and not necessarily knowing where the ending was going to be. I still love the ending, but I understand where that frustration is. The same thing with like the new Star Wars films and stuff like that,
yes.
where it's like I gotta feel like where they're going, and I'm like, we're not gonna do that. We're not gonna just be a mystery box, even though I love J.J. Abrams' mystery box idea. But we know what's in the mystery box, and we are going to show you at some point, right? And what's there. And in each season too. I also get frustrated when a season ends and I'm like, but I still don't know
Yeah.
this. And I'm like, I can't wait another season for that, right? And I literally will get frustrated. And so we think about that and we want to ask a big question and answer a big question every season. And I think that's very vital to us.
Yeah, and you want at least a little bit of a thread to be able to potentially connect the seasons together and make you want that next season. But and so for my book club for a comic book store, we read a lot of 5 issue miniseries that become trade paperbacks, and so that has a beginning, middle, and that's the story. You don't have anymore. Yes, sometimes there's sequels and they expand on things and so on and so forth. But like the 5th issue completes the story, and so you're done with it. You can move on and so on and so forth. So in the 12 months, the 12 books a year, I would say 9 or 10 of them are like that. So it's like people are just expecting this clean finish ending. And when we read the first trade paperback for Revival, the first 5 issues, there's a lot of unexplained stuff. But Tim and Mike went into this for the long haul. This was a long
Hmm.
ongoing series, so they can't just wrap everything up in the first thing. But they wrapped up enough, in my opinion. And so I think that's what you're hoping for. I'm guessing in a season is wrap up enough, have that whole story, but also leave a little bit of open things so that I want to watch the next season. You don't want to end it going, I could take it or leave it. I don't. There's nothing open. There's no open ending. There's
Yeah.
nothing. Like you want to have that, and maybe it's just the experience itself, the way the show is made, the way the show is written. Maybe that tells it enough. But yeah, there's too many times where I've watched TV shows too that were canceled. That at
Hmm.
the end of it, you're like, oh, God damn it, I don't know what the hell happened after the
Well,
show.
that's the thing. I mean, well, and that's where, and look, I understand we're on SyFy.
Yeah,
So so I know what that means.
yeah.
I know what that means. And so much of this was understanding the audience's
Mhm.
expectations of what this is. So it was important to me that when you get to it's 10 episode series, when you get to the end of episode 10, you're like, oh my God, I got some pretty big answers that are here. But then at the same time, exactly what you said, we have because we've streamlined a big story,
Mhm.
here, a couple big stories of the comic into these 10 episodes. But then at the same time, have pulled back there's so many side quests, as I would call it. I mean,
Yes,
like Dana goes to New York and there's Amish ninjas. I
yes,
mean,
yes,
like there's so much shit
yes.
that goes on and unfortunately there's no Amish ninjas in season 1, I can tell you. But you're because of that, there's so much we can go to, but I think there's a way to streamline a
Mhm.
core story. And then also, we've had a lot of discussions with Tim in particular, who had ideas of where he wanted the story to continue going that we are now kind of implementing and playing
Yeah.
with. So that allows us to, we have access to beyond the 47 issues, which is really fun to think about what that setup is going to be, and how that goes. But yeah, I mean, it's just important to me that because there are people who are like, I'm not going to wait until I know there's a season two. I'm not even going
Mhm.
to watch. And people say that kind of shit. And I'm like, man, that's the reason why you don't get a season two, number one.
Yes,
But
exactly.
but beyond that, what I can say is what we have is going to have a beginning, middle, and end in this season while still making you want more.
Mhm.
And I think we were able to toe that line. And I'm very proud of how we constructed that. But it was very meticulous in the way that we put that together.
Does it make it harder or easier, or does it really matter being an adaptation versus like original creation? Like you have material you can go to. So if you're like, I'm stumped, where do I go next? Or how do I do this? Or I don't know what to do next. You have something you can fall back on. But also you have
Yeah.
to stick to something to pay the original source material a little bit of respect in that it's an adaptation. Does it make it harder or easier? Is it nice? I mean, is this? I mean, guessing looking back in your history of making movies, is this your first adaptation of something like this, or is it
Goodness, this is
like
my first
not a comic
adaptation.
specific, but just
Yes.
something? Okay,
I think it is. I think
yeah,
it's my first adaptation.
yeah,
I have to actually think
yeah,
about it. Made a lot of stuff. Uh, but as a writer, it is.
yes,
It is. And I mean, I'll say I think that that's just it is all dependent on the material.
mhm,
Because if the material like there's stuff, and I've taken meetings where they want me to like, hey, here's a book or a
yeah,
podcast or a thing and make something on it, and I'm like, oh my God. Like this thing's awful, like I don't want to like I'd have to redo I guess I could keep this idea
yeah.
and then do a whole thing and then you're struggling to because it's pain to try to bring in those things again. This is the opposite. I mean,
Mhm.
here we are all we want to do is like, and keep in mind they're also, as you know, they're just different mediums, so
Yep.
there's things that like between the panels, if you will, that we would talk about that I want to have character moments and have those times with the actors to kind of feel and let them breathe and certain things. And there's also other things that I want to see and go to and kind of like deep dive into that maybe the comic didn't,
Mm.
because you need to connect a little differently when you're watching this on TV than you do, flipping pages.
Yeah.
So, but no, I think it was a wonderful experience because whenever we had such a good core story to keep like using as a crutch to like
Yep.
go back to. So if we're like, oh, we kind of and Luke and I would talk about this all the time. Like, let's write ourselves into a corner. Like, what is the toughest spot for Dana to get out of?
Yeah.
And then force us to get out of that corner too, which is fun, like to have to creatively come out of this. And sometimes it was like, how do we get to this big set piece, which is something from the comic that we're now strategizing how to get there. And then it's like, well, how do we get out of this? How do we make it really difficult? And then you have to incorporate something new.
Mm.
Episode 6 of the show, without spoiling anything, although that's out now on SyFy and Peacock probably by the time this airs, is a good example of that. People know the comic. It's dealing with the Czech brothers, big things there. There's a thing that M does in the comic and what's going on and what's there. And we wanted to, it's like, okay, there's a way to do this, but at the same time, we've added more stakes because now Dana has been shot and some
Mm.
things and she's not well. And, so we've added all these layers of things to it. And how do they culminate? And then that leads to us doing something new and different in episode 6 that's not in the comic, but it allows. But when we talked to Tim about it, he's like, "Oh my God, that makes perfect sense,"
Yeah.
you know. And so it was like, finding ways to kind of massage those and get them to come together. But the source material for us definitely, I mean, I, it's so good that the only frustration I have is fitting all the shit in that I want to
Yes. That you
fit.
want. Yes.
I mean, that's it. I'm like, oh my God, I wish we could have done like, I'll say like we unfortunately don't get into Anders Hine a
Yeah.
lot in this season. And I love that story. There's like crazy shit that's going on in the Anders Hine story in the comic. And so that's something that maybe, season 2 we'll try to incorporate and play with. But there's so many more too.
Yeah.
Like I would love to get to
It's
Anderson because I
47
will say,
issues of a comic book, so I feel like it's
yeah,
like
yeah,
it's
yeah,
it's not one of those things. I mean, if you did an episode for each one of them, that's a lot. So it's about over 5 seasons at 10 episodes, or almost 5 seasons at 10 episodes of
yeah,
an issue. It obviously doesn't work that way. As some people expect it to. You watch the first episodes, first book, and so on and so forth. It's not how that works. And I'm glad again. I'm glad it doesn't do that. Like it's one of those
yeah,
things that like to me, I'm like I love the story, but like if Tim came out and was like, I'm gonna do revival, but I'm gonna change a bunch of things, I'd buy that too.
yeah,
And so like I'd buy the issues of comic books again. I would do that. It's a I like that. I like the changing of things, the story itself. I mean, you mentioned Star Wars and other things. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. Good, bad, or ugly of a film or a TV show, I'm gonna watch it because I
yeah.
want to be more
Same,
entrenched in that universe. Still, it
same.
doesn't
Yeah,
matter. Like I still feel like I'm pinching myself, going, "We still get Star Wars stuff." I was born in
yeah.
'86. I felt like at that point we were never getting anything else from Star Wars. So
Exactly. Yeah,
everything else has
yeah.
been bonus in my opinion. So
I
uh,
literally slept on a tent on the side on a sidewalk to see episode 1,
see, and
right?
that's
So like that was me. I mean, 100%. And there. And to your point though with this as well, like we deliberately set up again the first issue to be like the
yeah.
first episode. And then because that is going to set an expectation for all the reasons we've already aforementioned,
Mhm.
the aforementioned reasons, but also now the savvy comic reader who knows the series is like, oh, well then issue 2 might that be
Mhm.
this, and then you quickly realize like that's not what's happening,
Yep.
and so it's like, oh, now I don't know where this is going to go. I thought I knew
Mhm.
where it was going to go, and there might be other issues that are closer to an episode here or there, but that was the fun liberties that we could take, where it's like we want to keep you guessing whether you've read the comic or not. We want this
Mhm.
to still be enjoyable in that way.
Well, you also mentioned a medium. It's a different medium. So different mediums also tell stories differently. And so like it might make sense that the fifth issue in this series, you're like, well, there's something that goes on in that one that actually makes more sense on TV to be at the end of season 1 or episode 1 or whatever it may be. As long as you hit a bunch of the points that are important to make that makes the comic book what it is. I think a lot of us are like, it doesn't really matter if it happens in episode 10 or episode 2. As long as you see some of these things, like, if your main two characters weren't the main two characters from the book, then okay, then you're kind of going off on a veered
Yeah.
path that don't really I like,
Yeah.
but it works that way. And I'm glad that 10 episodes I think is like one of those great spots nowadays. It doesn't matter how long they are. I feel like that, we have such a short attention span as humans now, and there's so much out there that 10 episodes, like, okay, you can commit to 10 episodes. It's the same thing I always do to people. I'm like, when you write a mini series that are out there, like read a comic book mini series. It's 5 issues. You can commit to 5 issues. People just read the 5 issues. If
Yeah.
you like it, you
Yeah.
like it. If you don't, you don't. But yeah, 10 episodes is like you're not expecting me to get into a 22 episode season,
Yeah.
which is something that is great about modern TV nowadays. It also looks like it sounds so bad, but it doesn't look like it belongs on SyFy. Look, it looks much better than what I expected it to look like on Spotify. Not SyFy, I should say. It just when you watch the episodes, I'm watching this, I'm going, this is not on TV. This is definitely on a streaming network or something like that.
Hmm.
Which obviously it is a week
Oh,
later,
cool.
but you know what I mean. The
Yeah.
production value is just up there, and the actors are great. The whole it just fit perfectly. And I do think that there's probably part of me. I mean, you love it as a creator of the show. I'm loving it because you're on a property that I really like. And so there's probably a small amount of that, but like in general, my wife's never read the comic books and so on and so forth, and she loves it. So it's definitely
Oh, that's amazing.
hitting that stride that it needs to be in.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, and to backtrack on a couple of things, you said
Yeah.
some great things there.
Yeah.
One is audience expectations and
Yes.
their time. Like I always think about this, and even I, as a consumer, many times I'm like, I'll watch it when the world tells me to watch it.
Yes.
Like people are clamoring about it, and now I'm like, oh my God, I need everybody to watch it right now, otherwise we don't know if we're gonna get out of season. So it's like
Yes.
being in this position now, it changes your purview. But at the same time, I know that's how I think. And I also know that when I will give up on a show,
Hmm.
I know where my investment wanes and starts to hit certain points and shows that I started and didn't finish for one reason or another. And so all of that was something that we just really thought about the audience. Like it was, we just didn't want to spoon feed this to them. We wanted them to be kind of guessing.
Hmm.
We believe that the audience is more savvy than even a lot of sci-fi execs might want to
Yeah.
admit. We just there were a lot of things that I'm like, nah, I believe they're gonna get this. I think they're
It's
gonna understand what it is we're doing because I get it and I'm the target audience. Like
hmm
I'm making a show, ultimately, Luke and I were making a show that we wanted to see, that we
hmm
dug, that not only were we proud of, but a show that we would want to watch. And so we're competing with shows that, I mean, literally one episode of our show, or one episode of almost any of the shows that are going to be top 10 horror everything and every nominee and all this would cost more than our entire season,
hmm
right? And so I mean we made this for like literally a fraction, a
hmm
tenth of what these shows are being made for, minimum a tenth, some even more. And so when you take that into consideration, it's like, yeah, but nobody cares. Like
Yeah.
it's still an hour of someone's time. And I have to understand that. So that's what's up against us. Like we have to be more engaging. We have to take more time with it. And it's hard. It's really hard. But the hope was again that we're going to reward those who are willing to give us their time
hmm
and really think about the audience the whole time. Like it's just vital in what's there. No, I don't remember your second point, which was also very good and valid. But but yeah, it's still it's a tricky line to thread, throughout this.
hmm
But in the end, we've had a lot of people and that I think what's happening is the end of the episodes are like getting people. There's a lot of like WTF moments, like
Yes.
what the fuck,
Yes.
what's going on here,
Yes.
and that helps propel us,
Hmm.
and what's there. But then, oh, you're talking about, sorry, the scope and just the
Yes.
look and very much, and thank you for bringing that up because that was a big deal for us. So, I take a lot of pride in that we make. Lower budget movies that look bigger than they are. So
hmm
that's part of my expertise and Luke as well and where we come from. And then, but we really searched for the right DPs, the right lenses, the right gaffer, the right combination of elements to make this look different. I mean, like literally, we had our lenses had to be individually approved because they have aberrations and things on them that, you know, sci-fi is like not used to. They've never allowed, right? And they're the same kind of lenses they did for Shogun and
Okay.
stuff, and things like that. So it's like a very scope, right? You want to feel
Mhm.
that scope. But then we also our aspect ratio is a different aspect ratio than has ever in the history of sci-fi been done. And I was told you can't do it. And I'm like, let me ask them. Let me talk to them, you know? And I happen to have known some of those execs for a long time, and we were able to kind of push, and very, very grateful that they allowed us to do things that no other sci-fi show has done. I mean, even the first trailer of the show, we had to have meetings. I'm like, guys, you got to scrap it. I want a whole new trailer,
Yeah.
and all this. And I was very, very demanding and forceful, but I kept telling them, was like, I'm going to deliver you a show that is above and beyond the budget you're spending on this show. I promise you that. You got to trust me, and I'll trust you. It goes two ways here,
Yeah.
and thankfully they did, and I'm very, very grateful because it looks different on purpose, and that is no knock on any other sci-fi show,
Hmm.
but I love shadows, I love blacks, I
Yeah.
love, our time in the color grade and all these things, which we're still doing, by the way. I got
Yeah.
color grade tomorrow. I gotta do for episode 10, so it's all we spend a lot of time
Hmm.
with that. Music too is another one that I think can make things feel bigger than it is with the right kind of music. And our composers, Lydia Ainsworth and Alex Cuervo, are just magic, and pushing them constantly, to try to go further. So all of that, all those elements come together to allow you to make a show and put the dollars on the screen, if you will.
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing. I think it's people are so judgmental nowadays too. That it's like so easy to just be online and be like, this show looks so bad, or whatever. But like, I think it, and again, I probably have a little skewed opinion on it, being a big fan of the comic itself and Tim's work and Mike's work. But it just looked it looked like what I wanted it to look like. I looked like the level that I wanted this to be at. And my friend Adam Caesar has his Clown on the Cornfield movie that
Yeah, I
came
know,
out
Adam.
recently too.
Yeah,
That movie
I
looked
tried to get the rights to it. I couldn't get it. Eli and them had already had the
yeah,
rights. I tried to get
yeah.
the rights to make it. I wanted to direct it,
It's
and
one of
I
my
tried to
favorite
get the
books of
rights.
all time. I'm not even joking.
It's
Like
so good.
it's
It's
so
so
good. It's
good.
so amazing. And when I saw it on this big screen, I'm like, I am so happy this is what it looks like. And that to me
Yeah,
was
yeah.
like there could have been easily done that someone could have bought the rights to it and just turned it out and made a movie, and it looks so good. The acting is really good. I think that the same thing here. I think that your cast is phenomenal. I think you got a couple of people that nobody knows, but a couple of people that are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're in that show, and a couple of
Yeah.
old, veterans of the industry, and I think that mix is really well. And I think that a lot of people read the comic that I know have appreciated the show so far, and
Mm.
are excited. And I do love the idea that it's also like you can stream it still, so you can go on Peacock a week later and see the show. So if you don't have
Yeah.
YouTube TV or any of the networks or television streaming things like YouTube TV or Fubo, whatever they are out there, that you can actually see these things streaming if you can or need to.
Yeah.
It's a great. I think you found. I think you probably agree. You found a good spot for it. I think it's in having the problem is you
I
do so
hope.
well on a small budget, Aaron, that you're never going to get a big budget. I'm just kidding. They're all
I
going to want
know,
you to do
right?
it. They're
We
going to be like,
really
well, you do
like
so
literally
well.
Samir Rahim, who's our Block 2 director, him and I talked about exactly that. He's like, the problem is we did pull it off. A
Yes.
miracle that we pulled it off, but we did pull it off, and now it's like, well, they don't need any more money. Here's what they did, in season one, and I mean, I went out of pocket on things. I
Yeah.
paid for stuff myself sometimes. Like there were certain shots and things that we needed to do, and it's just how much you have to believe in the show,
Yeah.
and I hope it's the right combination of elements. I mean, we need. We are not renewed for season two. Everybody's like,
No. Yeah. Yeah.
people are
Yeah.
assuming there's a season two
Yeah.
because it's doing well
Yeah.
and all this. It's not. Like
Mm.
it is so hard. It is much harder right now to get a
Yeah.
season two than ever before. And so, we're every week counts, every view counts,
Mhm.
and they just need to see that we're growing and that people are really getting it. And thankfully the response to episode six, we always kind of knew, episode six was going to be a big deal. And the response to that I think is
Mhm.
invigorated some people to talk about the show and hopefully bring in some more folks. But yeah, man, I hope
I mean, and
so.
you never know really, and it's not like not ton. I've chatted with Eliza Clark before about why the Last Man's TV show adaptation, where the season was canceled, like the finale. I didn't even
Yeah,
wait for it to be over, and they're like, "Oh, we're not doing this anymore." So it's like
yeah, yeah.
your future in this show is in the hands of SyFy and NBC, and so it is one of those things that people should watch. Waiting is great, but like it's the same thing I've always said about it works in the comic book industry. Yes, people wait for the trade, but in the same sense, like in order to get potentially more, you might want to buy the single issues because it shows the publisher that
Yeah,
you like the product that's getting put out. So yeah, same thing with a TV show
yeah,
is to try to watch it when it comes out. It's worth it because you want more. You got to show that it's worth the thing.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And I mean, I
It's
think it's and again, even though I'm very proud of the way we wrap up season one,
yeah,
like, oh my God, the plans we have for season two and season three. Like I just, I salivate at like because now you've established characters.
yeah,
And so I don't have to like go back and reestablish them. Like you have things that you
yes,
know that you can build on, and it gives us a much more interesting kind of runway. And and there's things that, like I said, Mike and Tim wanted to do and they couldn't do, and like now we've set up some things that could happen. But at minimum, but even if we have one season, like it's still going to be satisfying, and
hmm
that was very important. But man, I really hope, yeah.
yeah, me too. I think a lot of us are. You finishing it up here, but you have now done TV. You've done this TV, you've done it, you've written it, and so on and so forth. Is this something that you like this format of doing things, or you like to go back to doing mostly films? And are you? I mean, you can't say much, but are you working on other stuff as well? I'm guessing.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm definitely working on other stuff. I mean,
Yeah,
that's so, my company, Paper Street Pictures,
yeah,
like we're making a lot of movies,
yeah,
and this year didn't make as much because I was off doing the show.
mm,
But the team, we've got a bunch that are upcoming that I'm producing and helping write and different things. I'm not directing anything at the moment
mhm.
because I'm hoping to get a season two, and then I'm
Yeah,
back
yeah,
on Revival season two, and
yeah,
directing just takes up too much of my time. So yeah, number of features that are upcoming via Paper Street and what's there, but no, talking, full circle to like that itch, that you
yeah.
don't kind of realize. And I mean, I became writing was my first passion. It is and always will be my first passion. And I became a director to protect my writing, became a producer to protect my directing.
Hmm.
So, that's really what I want to do. And there is no medium that is more writer centric than TV.
Hmm.
In film, you can write something and then the director can go do what they want, and then a producer and a director are fighting and deciding what to do. And it's the hierarchy is weird. It's like producer technically is in charge, but then the director's vision, and
Hmm.
then the writer, nobody cares about, and they just delivered a script. It's a weird thing. And then here in TV, it's totally different. The
Hmm.
directors are completely in service of the writers who are the showrunners, right?
Hmm.
And what's there. So, we are hiring the directors. They're working a very specific purview, and still have to show their creative muscles and what's there, but it's just a different world. And man, it's a weird amalgamation
Yeah.
of what I think are my best strengths, which are I've produced so many movies and done all this stuff for such a long time that I understand the logistical elements, I understand the budgetary concerns, I understand production,
Hmm.
and just how to get shit made.
Yeah.
But then my passion is writing.
Hmm.
So now I get to write and do this, and so that combination has been truly, truly special. And again, a lot of credit goes to Luke, who's just been such an amazing creative partner throughout this whole thing and this whole process, and allowing us to kind of do this together. But yeah, like I had a feature I was about to go direct right before Revival got made, and then I was thinking about doing it in between, but I'm still holding because nothing has been as creatively fulfilling
Than
as
this. Yeah.
doing this, like
Yeah.
nothing. And so, yeah, I want to make more TV, and I might finally actually sign with like an agent or a manager just because I want to capitalize on this and get in the room for some bigger TV
Yeah.
stuff,
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
well. Because I just think that that's what I could do best, in this industry. Or I mean, I guess I take a lot of pride in my ability as a producer, as an indie producer, and getting stuff made and what's there. And that'll always be something that I'll still do. I'll just probably be more picky now and which filmmakers I'm working with and what that is. But nothing, and I love doing that, but this is what I want to do
Yeah.
now. I mean,
Mhm.
this is like it is totally in my wheelhouse and is so fulfilling. It's nuts. It's nuts.
It's funny how there was a time where I was like, I like this movie, like this movie, like this movie, and then come to find out they're all directed by the same person. I didn't know that. Like this
Yeah.
connection that you're like, oh no shit, I like this movie. It makes sense because it was directed by this person or whatever.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
felt the same way when I was like kind of looking into your with Paper Street Films as well as other things that are on your IMDb and things like that. And it's like, well, actually, I like these movies, and I'm like, oh. at least you were touching them somehow, either producing them or
Oh yeah.
writing or directing or whatever. And it makes sense. And then that's one of the reasons why, I didn't know you as well when I pressed play on the first episode of Revival. But now I can kind of see how the connection of all the things and how, you're talented. And I don't want to say your head to get too big on the screen here, Aaron, but you got a talent and I want to see more of it. So I'll be backing anything you put out because like I said, most of the stuff I've seen that you've either at least had a finger on has been pretty good. So keep it up. How about that?
You're
There you go.
That's
Right?
unbelievably kind. That's unbelievably kind. I mean, I think I work with a lot of talented people. I have a lot of
Yes.
talented partners, and that gives me the ability to kind of work on cool stuff. And yeah, I mean, I just in the end, like, I mean, one of the things people notice, and look, and I've made bad shit. Let's just be honest too. Like I know that, and I think, and sometimes I took some projects for the money, which was the
Yeah.
wrong play, and those might have been nominated for a Razzie, and stuff like that. But which is true.
Yeah.
That happened once. But I think in the end, and even the movies that I had made, so that I wrote, which didn't quite hit, you could like hopefully start to see if
Yeah.
people watch them, you could see little hints of like where I'm trying to find my voice, and
Hmm.
figure out, and I thought I was gonna make, I'm gonna do A24 horror and whatever the hell that means, and like that
Yeah.
thing. And that's not really my zone. Like
Mhm.
once I made the scare package movies, which are so fun and just ridiculous, horror comedies,
Yeah.
that's when I was like, oh, this is actually what I like the most.
Hmm.
This is actually what I really dig. And that's why a lot of the humor that's infused, and again, a ton of the comic too. It's a very,
Yeah.
very funny comic. But, the jokes and all that is really a big part of what I was doing here, and infusing that and the humor in the weird situations. Like that's what I love. I love something that you're laughing at like a really dumb dad joke, and then later you're crying because of like high levels of drama, and then you're shrieking because there's a
Yes.
scary moment or gore or whatever. And if you can balance all those, like I just think they're three sides to the same three-sided
Hmm.
coin,
Hmm.
like I think there's something really fun about that, and that they're all set up and pay off,
Hmm.
and how you can do it. And if you can balance that without whiplashing you, which I think early in my career maybe I whiplashed a little too much and how I shifted, but now I'm starting to kind of find a little bit of the zone, and very proud of what we've done with this. And it's very much, I'm like, yeah, it's fun. Like I want to make fun shit, like
Yes.
that's a big thing. Like I don't want to be dour and down as much and all that. Like I want there to be, I wrote a whole thing with Letterboxd a few years ago called Horror with Heart,
Hmm.
and they had asked me to kind of talk about movies and we were doing, and some of the movies I had made, and that's really what I keep coming back to is horror with heart, and once you get to the end, I mean, we were doing the final mix on episode 10, and I mean, I think there were four, five, six people crying, at the end of episode 10. And so, and I'm like, okay, yeah, like, but it's
Let's
horror.
do this.
It's
Yeah.
horrific
Yeah. Yeah.
things too going on. And so I think, I'm like, all right, I think I'm doing something right here.
Mm.
So we'll see. The
Well,
imposter syndrome is just ridiculous though, just listening to you say that, but we
yeah,
will have to
it
talk
is.
about that.
You know what? I'll tell you right now. Anybody out there, if you haven't read the comic book yet, I feel like the first two or three pages of the comic book will get you hooked on it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a
Mm-hmm.
scene with an incinerator, and
Yep.
it's also the first scene in the movie or the TV show, it's first part of the TV show as well, which is also a moment where I was like, hell yes, this is amazing because it just if that doesn't tell you what the hell, like I just can't imagine what that was like, what would that would be like in that room,
Yeah.
with that happening. And so to me, I was like, if that doesn't hook you, I don't know what's going to, what not going to. But in the same thing at the end of the first issue with it saying "Don't tell dad" and that falling, and like the first episode should hook you. But I've always
Yeah.
said to people, give it a few episodes if you're not a big fan of it, because I feel like you can't get enough out of only one episode. And because it's only 10 episodes, just give it the whole season. Just watch the whole
Yeah.
thing. Don't like
I mean,
this is time
episode
is important to
sixes are
people, but like still, it's.
episode sixes are like, and I know that's beyond halfway, so that's a lot to
Yeah.
ask. But if you can get to like the end of episode six and you're not, and you're still on the fence, like don't worry about it.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
But if you're at episode six, like I think this
You know.
such crazy things happen, and it's a big recontextualization of everything
Mhm.
that's going on. We call it our second pilot,
Yeah.
that's really what so much of this was, which was just like finding a way to like, set up the stakes, then kind of go on a journey and then just upend all those stakes again. in a different way by using stuff that's in the comic just in a way that wasn't necessarily in the comic. So,
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, that's
I,
that's one we always ask people to try to get to.
we have a nice mixture of listeners on here that are TV fans, film fans, but also comic book fans. And I definitely feel like this is definitely obviously an adaptation of a comic book into a TV, meets those Venn diagram of fans in there, and you should be able to find that in there. But I highly recommend, uh, to either way, read the comic and then watch the show, or do the opposite. See how the show takes the comic and does what it wants to with it. And so I think that's cool to have that. I've done it both ways
Hmm.
before, whether read a Stephen King book and then watched the adaptation, or the opposite. So I have done that, and I've been let down and surprised in both sides of it. But I
Yeah.
personally, like I said, I highly recommend the comic book as its own thing too. And so it's one of my favorite comics that are
Same.
out there. I mean, I have a nice little Tim Seeley signed
Yep.
copy of that. I have the
Yeah.
regular paper trade signed by Tim.
Yeah.
I also have this signed by Tim. So like
Amazing.
I have all of them. So it's great. And so I can't wait for people to actually, I want the whole season to be out there so I can actually talk to people, without spoilers and things like that. It's one of those,
Yeah.
it's a fun time to live in, though, to be able to go week to week to those people who have seen it. Like, oh, have you seen episode 6 yet? That was past Thursday or whatever. And they're all like, no, I haven't gotten there yet. I'm like, well, talk to me when you get the chance to do that, because I want to talk to you about it. And so
Oh, that's
it's
great.
an exciting time to live in. And to me personally, like I said, Tim's such a great person too. So seeing his and Mike Norton's work come to fruition, and all the hard work that he's put into making it
Yeah.
on TV, it's so cool to see that as well. And Tim's a busy person right now, writing Godzilla and all
Yeah.
that stuff too. He's
Yeah.
not taking any
Yeah.
time off.
Yeah, we're
Um,
going to San Diego Comic Con this week, and yeah,
yeah,
he's always doing like a million things and all this, which is great, And the fact that he hadn't had something like
yeah.
made
Oh my
is
God.
just stupid. It's just
Well,
absolutely insane.
in the comic book industry, I was like, oh, we always talk about Tim Seeley in the comic shop. We're talking about this, that, Godzilla coming out. He just wrote the Marvel swimsuit edition
Hmm. Yeah.
comic. His Local Man comics, phenomenal, with Tony
Yeah.
Fleece, like all amazing. And then last summer when the Eisners came out, and I'm like, oh, Tim Seeley's nominated for his first Eisner. I go, wait a second, his
Yeah.
first?
Yeah.
And someone's like, yeah. I'm like, all the amazing stuff this guy's made, and he's never been nominated. I'm like, this makes me put some perspective of this one person who always complains about not being nominated for an awards. Will not mention this person, but there's one person I know who always is like, oh, another season are not nominated. This puts you into perspective. If Tim hasn't been nominated until last summer, then there's really,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Tim's
Yeah.
such a phenomenal comic book writer, and again now TV, helping with TV and stuff like that. And also I'm a
Yeah.
big fan of Michael Morrissey too. So like that,
Yeah,
the
Michael's
first,
the best.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
writing
it's a
he wrote the
big,
pilot
yeah.
with us and
Hmm.
had such a joy writing that together. And yeah, no, it's been a wonderful immersion
Hmm.
into Tim's world, Michael's world, and understanding comics even more. And and I see Saga back there, which I got
Yeah.
into after reading
Okay.
Revival, and then I'm going back to some of the old Image
Yeah.
comics and some of that, and what's there, and Chew, which is just
Yes.
so rad,
Obviously.
and
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
so there's just
That
there's
would
a
be
bunch
great.
that,
I'd like to see
oh
you
my
take
God.
that on.
Yes, I agree with you. I agree with you. I may have said that before. I think Chew would be so rad. So yeah, no, there's a lot
Yeah.
there, and so it's an exciting world to kind of think about
Hmm.
more stuff and what could potentially be there. But still have a lot of story with
Oh
Revival
yeah.
to go, and
Yeah.
very excited to continue that one.
I'm excited. Like I said, I've always been like happy. We mentioned recently, just a second ago, it's in the world. It's out there now. No one can take this season away from you, from us, from anybody, because we're gonna see it all. And then whether we get more or not, I'll just be happy for it. I'll want more. I want more for you. I want more for us. But if this is what we get, is what we get. It got made, and that's just important in this situation. But
Yeah.
like I said, keep watching it, because I want people to. I want more. So people should watch it. Put it on 6 TVs in your house. Do whatever you need to do to
Yeah.
tell
Put it
all
on
your
mute,
neighbors.
go to bed, put it on mute in the background. On peak, because like most people don't have Nielsen.
Yeah,
By the way, if you have a Nielsen
yeah.
box, oh my God, please
Please
watch.
watch it.
But if you don't, you just put it on Peacock in the background, put it
Yeah,
on mute.
yeah.
Like I'll
I'm just
take
gonna
it.
knock on
I'll
all my
take it.
neighbors' houses and just be like, guys, just put this on. I really think you should watch it, but if you don't, that's okay. Just put it on.
Yeah,
But
because they're watching these. I mean, like,
yes.
we get like weekly updates
Hmm.
and like, are we improving? Are we
Hmm.
moving? Is this demographic, this and this? And it's like, and the threshold to get a renewal is so much higher. They
Yep.
used to just like they obviously, canceled some, probably maybe a
Yeah.
little arbitrarily, some would say, but they also renewed some that were like,
Yes.
yeah, we'll give them another season or whatever. That is not how it works anymore.
No.
So we definitely need those eyes. So I really appreciate you talking about it
Yeah.
and yeah, and giving especially coming from Tim and Mike's work, because it's really special. It is a complete honor to be able to adopt what they have done here, and
Yeah.
I hope to continue to do so. And again, it was with the audience and with the fans of the comic in mind, so you can have fun. So
Yes.
yeah.
And we are definitely here for it. And my buddy Paul, who owns the Galactic Comics and Collectibles in Bangor, Maine, are going to hopefully do a series review after the season ended,
Mm.
after season ends, so that we can get a kind of get it out there as well at the end too. But
Well,
we just reviewed the 2005 Fantastic Four movie.
okay. All right. All right.
If
Good
that
luck with
tells
that.
you what we actually normally review, I mean, we do the obscure Marvel and
Sure.
so we've done
Sure.
Swamp the Man Thing movie that was made for TV or
Oh
whatever, and
my
we've done
God.
like
Yeah.
Nick Fury, Agent of Shield. So we've done some pretty obscure, pop culture movies. But
Yeah.
this every once in a while we just did Back to the Future for the 40th anniversary, but we'll
Yeah.
do Revival because we're big fans of that too, and 50th anniversary of Jaws this year. So
I know. Oh my
that's
God. Yeah. Yeah.
crazy.
That was crazy. They actually, one of the last episodes was airing. They showed Jaws before the last episode aired on SyFy, because I'm watching a SyFy. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my God, like this is a weird thing for me right now. And what's there. Also, I will flag, so not flag, but
Yeah.
so Bangor, we actually shot in New Brunswick, in St.
Yes.
John, New Brunswick.
Yep.
So I went through Bangor, Maine. I went by, Stephen
Yeah.
King's house and everything and all that. And a lot of people would go back into Maine, sometimes on the weekends and stuff. And like David James Elliott, who
Yeah.
plays Wayne,
Yeah.
is from Jag and all that back in the
Yeah.
day, and great guy. He would cross over into Maine to get his cigars, and then come back over to New Brunswick on the weekends.
Yeah, it's
So yeah, so I'm familiar with Bangor. Like I
yeah, there you
definitely
go.
I know it well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're ever back, look me up. We'll hang out. We get some. I work for a brewery for the day, during the day. I'm a creative director for a brewery.
Oh,
So a lot
cool.
of times I have people in town. We have a restaurant. I brought them out to the restaurants and stuff like that too. But like, yeah, it's a Stephen King's house is usually a stop on the way. Daniel
Yeah.
Kraus was up here recently, who's got his movie Whale Fall being made right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I know
he's been
Daniel
here.
too. Yeah,
Yeah,
I haven't
yeah,
read Whale Fall. I saw
yeah,
he had that option.
phenomenal,
That's amazing.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
And the movie's like I think it's done. I think it's in post production now.
Oh my God.
But he was
Yeah.
talking about it recently.
So
So
cool.
yeah, but yeah, I've done beers with him and George A. Romero. We did his foundation. We did a beer called Pay the Piper for
Yeah.
their book that came out. But yeah, and so
Oh,
he's came up
rad.
here. You always got to see Stephen King's house. It's one of those things. He's not there anymore. He's in
Yeah.
Florida, but like
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
his house is there. So yeah. But yeah,
Yeah.
Revival on
Rad.
SyFy Thursday nights, and then a week later on Peacock. So make sure you watch that for sure. Again, and also pick up at your local comic book shop or wherever you can find books, the trade paperback or the collector's
Yeah.
edition or the single issues, wherever you can find of the
There's a
comic
new
as well.
compendium out too. There's a
Yes,
new compendium that got released right at the end when we were making the show. Actually, we gave it out to everyone on set. So that was
that's
our
awesome.
our crew gift, that Luke and I bought them for everyone.
Yeah,
So that, and then Tim was like signing them and doing drawings and all of them for
yeah,
everybody when he was there, which was really fun. And then they're also we have a new print. Well, the print we'll give away at San Diego Comic
yeah.
Con. We might have some of those. And then I believe they're doing a new reissue
Mm.
of the first issue too. That's going to be a fun special thing that I'll let them divulge. Let Image
Yes,
say what
exactly.
they want to say
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's fun. It's fun. I'm so happy that you came on, took the time out of your day to join. I know you got a lot going on, and thank you so much for making this happen and chatting with us. And we'll hopefully have you back on in the future for your next project or to talk season 2 or
Yeah.
to whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
But I look forward to that. But thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to chat with us here.
No, it was wonderful. I had a wonderful chat. Thanks for being patient with my time and my schedule. So yeah, and for watching the show. Thank you.
Yes, I'll watch it. Don't worry. We got at least one viewer over here.
I'll take it. I'll take
I'll
it.
make my wife watch
Yeah.
it on her laptop though, so there's two streams going on at the
Deal,
same time. No,
deal,
I'm
please.
kidding.
Thank you. Yeah,
Thanks, Aaron.
cool. All right, appreciate it. Cheers.